What if your stories are wrong? In this episode, we set up everything for the rest of this audiobook. Why your story is where we begin, and what changes when you realize you're still the one that's writing it. I'm Justin Sunseri, a therapist, self regulation coach, and Polyvagal Institute editorial board member. You are listening to Stuck Not Broken, Book 1 Trauma and the Polyvagal Paradigm. You have a story. More than one, most likely. There are things you say to yourself about your life and your worth and how you got where you are. You might assign yourself characteristics like unlovable or unforgivable. You might assign yourself a role like victim or survivor. You might give yourself a story arc and project how it ends, like being alone and miserable or never meeting a specific life goal. You may wonder why you did or did not do something. You may blame or shame yourself. You also have stories from others, like it's not okay to be angry or it's a weakness to cry. I'm sure you have stories about other people as well. On the other hand, you may have stories about yourself that are more optimistic and forgiving and compassionate. I hope you do. But I'm guessing your stories are, at least partially, what brings you to this book. And I assume they are not of the positive variety. You want to change yourself, your choices, feelings, behavior, and stories. You want more connection with yourself and others. You want to reduce your flashbacks, your depression, your negative coping habits. And that's great. I think all of those things can change eventually. Over my 17-ish years as a therapist, I've worked with hundreds of diverse clients with hundreds of diverse struggles. Change is generally possible, though also generally not easy. I know I'm probably not your therapist, but I think you can make change too. And I think the self-regulation system, SRS, can be helpful. The first phase of the system is learning and writing a new story. I don't have a way to make you change your thinking. I can't flick a switch and force positivity into your stories about yourself and your life. And no, neither can you. You're probably well aware of that already. But I do have something to offer you, new information. It can challenge your thinking and open doors to new ways of thinking. Learning lays the foundation for making different choices, planning the future, and understanding yourself with more compassion and patience. In other words, the way that you think about yourself is not permanent. It can change. And your stories can change along with it. What if your stories are wrong? What if the way you think about yourself, the judgments, blame, and shame were wrong or misplaced? What if you don't deserve those? What if what you believe about yourself and others is wrong? What would that open up? Imagine the possibilities if the narratives you've clung to change. What if you rewrote your story about who you are and why you are? What if you view your past, present, and future through a lens of growth and resilience? What if your feelings were valid and normal and expected? What if you aren't broken or defective, but just stuck? We're not going to discard your past or ignore your true experiences. That's not helpful. Instead, we'll create a new lens through which to view them. With the new lens, you'll write a new, short, simple story. We'll honor your history with compassion and with curiosity. The stories we tell ourselves are powerful. They contribute to our behaviors, our emotions, our relationships, and our potential as well. But our stories are not unchangeable truths. They can change. This book is your guide to starting that process. stepping into a narrative where you are not defined by your trauma or your past, but empowered by your journey now and in the future as well. And by the way, your story is not over. You're the one with the pen, and you're still writing. You are the author with the power to shape its direction. You're not destined to be alone, miserable, or unfulfilled. You have the agency to forge a path toward healing, connection, and accomplishment. Welcome to Stuck Not Broken Book 1 and the first phase of the self-regulation system. You are embarking, along with me, on an epic, life-changing journey of learning, questioning, rethinking, practicing, building safety, and even unstucking. But as always, we start with the here and now. Even though there is much to come, we'll stay focused on this phase of your journey and what is necessary. This is where you get the knowledge necessary and start thinking about things differently, opening the potential for change. The structure of Book 1. Section 1 lays the foundation for the rest of the book. It shares how I got to this point and discusses what paradigms are. Section 2 introduces the core principles of the polyvagal theory, a groundbreaking neurobiological framework for understanding ourselves. This will provide many of the ingredients necessary for a new narrative. Section 3 provides a new understanding of trauma and how we end up in and stay stuck in a traumatized state. Section 4, the final section, expands on the earlier concepts, helping you create a new narrative of yourself. It also helps identify if you're ready for the next phases of the trauma recovery journey through the self-regulation system. Each section of Book 1 builds upon the last, creating a comprehensive guide that educates and empowers you to learn a new paradigm and to craft a new, compassionate self-narrative. So, what's not in Book 1? Book 1 has a singular focus: learning a new paradigm and building a new narrative. So I guess it has two focuses. Coping skills are not in Book 1. Book 1 does not discuss specific skills to reduce emotional dysregulation. You can easily find loads of coping skills through a simple online search. Trauma recovery techniques. The next two books cover the knowledge and techniques of trauma recovery. Book 1 touches upon them lightly. Extensive quotes and citations. Book 1 is for the layperson, the individual who just wants the information and next steps to make change. I personally find the academic style of heavy quotes and citations to be a barrier to easy reading and listening. However, in the written version of this book, there are many vagal vault breaks throughout the book if you want to unlock deeper learning and understand some of the primary sources that I've learned, pulled from, and created the self-regulation system from. Content notice. Yes, this is a trigger warning. I don't want to coddle you, but I also want you to make informed decisions about your trauma recovery journey. I won't post these notices again. This one will serve for the entire book series. If you don't need this, fine. Feel free to skip ahead to the next chapter. I've been creating content in the trauma recovery sphere for years now. I've learned much about my general audience, including this: I never know what will trigger someone. Of course, some things are more likely to trigger someone into emotional upheaval, like trauma narratives. In this book, I won't discuss details of traumatic incidents, so that's not something you need to worry much about at all. I won't share them in Book 1, nor in the following two, Stuck Not Broken Books 2 and 3. However, I will share real and imaginary examples throughout this book that I believe are mostly trigger-free, The one that may be the most triggering is the story of Courtney, which comes up a few times and illustrates many of the concepts in this book. The story of Courtney isn't a trauma narrative, but it's likely reminiscent of aspects of trauma narratives. It is clearly marked ahead of time as Courtney. But that also applies to much of this book. None of this book is overtly triggering or has detailed trauma narratives in it. Yet, it all touches upon things that may stir up past trauma for you. This book is the foundation of a trauma recovery journey, so I recommend you expect past stuff to come up. Read and reflect, or listen and reflect at your own pace, keeping things light. Don't spend time on specific traumatic events from your past. Even when we get to the new life narrative, we'll keep things light without going into traumatic incidents. Book 1 within the self-regulation system. Recovering from trauma is much more than changing the thoughts in our brains. In my clinical opinion, thoughts are the most difficult to change in isolation. Simply changing a thought from A to B is downright hard. If it were easy, you wouldn't have negative thoughts. You turn off the negative ones and replace them with positive ones that, make you feel good. Book 1 is not about thought replacement or changing specific thoughts like I hate myself or I'm worthless. It's more about addressing your larger life story. Book 1 addresses your larger life story through learning and unlearning, and then applying the new knowledge to your general life context, past and present. Of course, we don't want to learn anything random and hope for the best. We want accurate, clear, and helpful information. Ideally, that information is free of shame, blame, and judgment. The information should come from a convergence across various scientific fields, have hypotheses tested and confirmed in laboratory research, and be available or be observable in clinical settings. In Book 1, I will teach you the science of the polyvagal theory, PVT, and connect it to trauma. This new knowledge will lay the foundation for your trauma recovery journey. The following 2 books build on this knowledge. Stuck Not Broken Book 2, Building Safety, and Stuck Not Broken Book 3, Unstucking Defense. The self-regulation system contains 3 distinct but overlapping phases of trauma recovery. The 3 phases are contained in the 3 books, 1 per book. I highly recommend that you read and implement them in order. Book 2 teaches you to feel safe and connected. This is phase 2 of the self-regulation system. Book 3 teaches you to actively relieve your trauma. This is phase 3 of SRS. I'll share more about phases 2 and 3 throughout this book as they come up. That should give you a better idea of what's to come and also your capabilities and your growth areas. Before proceeding to Book 2 and Book 3, you need a rock-solid foundation of knowledge. This knowledge will help you create a new self-narrative, phase 1. Increase your emotional regulation, phase 2. And eventually, directly relieve your trauma in phase 3. We've reached the end of the first episode of Stuck Not Broken, Book 1. Next time, challenging your paradigm. 3 short chapters, how I got here, what a polyvagal prescription is, and what to do when you just want to get unstuck. Thank you so much for listening.